Good morning. Welcome. My name is Benjamin Gadan. I'm the director of the Latin America program here at the Wilson Center in Washington. I'm delighted about today's dialogue, Unlocking Green Hydrogen Development in South America. Green hydrogen used to be something of a niche topic. Not everyone fully understood the process of splitting water into oxygen and hydrogen gas to create fuel, or seriously considered this to be a meaningful alternative to fossil fuels as part of the global energy transition. Today, however, governments throughout the world are developing national strategies to build a green hydrogen industry. Arguably, no region has greater potential than Latin America. That is because Latin America has abundant wind, solar, and hydropower resources to power the electrolysis process that creates hydrogen. Indeed, renewable energy is so widely available in this region that it now accounts for a full 60% of electricity generation. That's double the global average, according to the International Energy Agency. Chile, one of the countries we will discuss at length today, is a great example, boasting some of the most intense sunlight in the world in its high-altitude deserts in the north and some of the most powerful winds in Patagonia in the south. Should Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and other countries in the region succeed in producing low-cost green hydrogen at competitive prices and at scale, it would make a significant contribution to global climate action, alongside important complementary regional efforts to preserve forests, including the Amazon. This zero-emission fuel could be especially important for decarbonizing heavy industries and global shipping. The green hydrogen industry could also help diversify Latin America's exports, supporting economic growth in a period of prolonged economic stagnation. Consider that the global market for green hydrogen is projected to reach $10 billion by 2028 as the phasing out of fossil fuels accelerates worldwide. Nevertheless, so far, green hydrogen remains an infant industry in this hemisphere, facing limited production capabilities, technological limitations such as an undersupply of electrolyzers, and uncertainties regarding global demand. There are approximately 65 projects in the region, but most remain in the early stages. That's why I'm so excited about today's conversation as we explore opportunities to accelerate the development of the green hydrogen industry and examine the incentive structures that might achieve that in the short and medium term. I'm also excited because we're partnering again with our great friends at the Inter-American Development Bank. The IDB has been a leader in designing a vision for green hydrogen production, storage, and distribution throughout this region, and a critical partner not only to us at the Wilson Center, but more importantly, to governments throughout Latin America as they have tried to wrap their heads around some of the complexities and science and technological and engineering challenges related to this industry in order to realize the climate action consequences and also the economic benefits that I've referenced earlier. The IDB is also a co-sponsor of a broader project here at the Wilson Center, the Latin America Energy Transition Initiative, which seeks to highlight critical minerals and renewable energy investment opportunities in the Americas, improve the investment climate for these projects, and encourage greater support by the United States and multilateral development banks for efforts to expand the region's role in clean energy supply chains throughout the Western Hemisphere. We greatly appreciate that partnership, both on today's event and our other activities related to the energy transition. To learn more about the importance of green hydrogen, in particular for Latin America and the global energy transition, we'll hear today from my good friend, Maria Florencia Tedemert, the IDB's general manager for the Southern Cone. Later, we'll also hear from a distinguished panel of experts, including Jose Miguel Benavente, CEO of Corfo, Chile's economic development agency, who's here with us in Washington, Elisa Facio, Uruguay's Minister of Industry, Energy, and Mining, who joins us from Montevideo. I'll let my colleague, Anders Biel, introduce our other fantastic panelists who will be here for our conversation. I appreciate all your work, Anders, on this project and our energy transition initiative. I welcome Chile's ambassador, who is here with us today, as well as other dignitaries and private sector representatives who are engaged in this important subject. For now, I'll just thank you again for your interest in this subject, your partnership, for accompanying us not only today, but in all the work we're doing to accelerate the development of industries throughout Latin America relevant to global climate action and economic development. I'll now turn to my friend Florencia to talk a bit more about the IDB's role in promoting green hydrogen. Again, thanks for joining us both here and online for this important conversation.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a pleasure to be here. It's really my true honor to continue to partner with the Wilson Center under Benjamin's leadership and to have such a great group of colleagues and friends and partners here to discuss the clean hydrogen opportunities with focus on green hydrogen. I also want to thank the people online and, of course, the great teams at the IDB, particularly my team at the Southern Cone country departments, and the Wilson Center team for all the collaboration over the last few months. Clean hydrogen, as Benjamin said, could be a key enabler to decarbonization, particularly in those sectors that are hard to abate, like heavy industry. I'm thinking about cement, steel, fertilizers, but also heavy-duty transportation, like maritime, aviation, railways, trucks. Its capacity to provide sustainable and versatile energy solutions is crucial for achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Industry and transport sectors account for nearly 50% of global greenhouse emissions. In Latin America and the Caribbean, heavy industry contributes 20% of these emissions. So I think there is a great opportunity to change those numbers, don't you think? South America, as Benjamin said, has a historic opportunity to lead in the production of clean hydrogen and its derivatives, including clean ammonia and methanol. However, integrating hydrogen into our economies presents an opportunity, of course, but also some challenges. And I would like to mention 4 challenges where the IDV group has been supporting our partner borrowing member countries in Latin America and the Caribbean to help them in the process of getting there. The first one is we have to think about geography. We need to understand that there are geographical challenges and opportunities for developing cost-competitive renewable energy sources to produce hydrogen. This includes infrastructure gaps, and I'm thinking transmission lines, pipelines, transformation plants, but also ports, because a lot of the off-takers would be abroad, outside of our region. So we need to help the countries get ready for that. Over the past 3 years, the IDB group has provided technical assistance to 15 countries and developed 10 national hydrogen roadmaps and strategies to address this challenge, among others. And I want to acknowledge here the presence of my colleague, Tomasz Serebriński, the IDV manager for infrastructure. He has been leading a lot of these efforts. Chile was mentioned before. I am based in Chile, so this is my own bias, fully disclosed. But for instance, in Chile, where I am also the country representative, President Boric presented Chile's Green Hydrogen Action Plan aimed at making Chile a global leader in green hydrogen production by 2040. And we'll hear more from José Miguel Benavente, the Vice President of Corfo, about that. Key initiatives in this plan include reducing installation and production costs and developing over 50 projects across the regions of the country, like Antofagasta and Magallanes. But there are opportunities outside of Chile as well. There is clean hydrogen potential in Argentina, and our country rep for Argentina, Agustina Guerre, is here. In Uruguay, our country rep for Uruguay, Luis Ros, is also present. In Paraguay, Alonso Chaverri, our country rep in Paraguay, is present. In Brazil, Morgan Doyle, our country rep, couldn't join us, but he's here in spirit. But there are opportunities throughout the Southern Cone, the region that I lead, and also outside the Southern Cone, in Peru, in Colombia, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Mexico. The region could supply at least 33% of the ammonia and methanol demand to Europe, South Korea, and Japan if the right conditions are met. And that takes me to the second challenge, regulatory improvements and the regulatory framework. There is a need to continue to enhance the regulations in our countries concerning safety, technical standards, and certification schemes. Developing the right regulatory environment that supports the development and deployment of hydrogen technologies is crucial. The IDB has been playing a vital role in addressing these issues and advising governments on creating the right regulatory environment. Examples, again, in Argentina and Uruguay, we're supporting the regulatory frameworks by developing policy reforms, such as the hydrogen law in Argentina, fiscal incentives of clean hydrogen development in Uruguay, among others. The third challenge that I want to highlight for you today is the social and environmental issues. We have to be able to support the countries and the private sector in managing those issues correctly. It is crucial, again, to have a focus on local communities, on those that are impacted by this kind of investments, particularly in the regions with indigenous populations. At the heart of the IDB Group efforts is our unwavering commitment to sustainability and inclusion. And we make sure that in every investment that we make, in every technical assistance that we provide, in any knowledge product that we put on the table, we have that mindset and we have those considerations at the forefront, really, to be able to make these investments socially and environmentally friendly and responsible. And the last challenge is the financing gap. Investment requirements in Latin America and the Caribbean are forecasted between 100 and 300 billion by 2030. So, of course, there is a role there to play for everyone, the private sector, through our IDB Invest arm, and Rafael is here representing us through IDB Invest. Oops. AI is also present with us today. That is good. We need to know how to harness the power of AI, including in the decarbonization transition. But going back to the financing gaps, there is a role to play for everyone, the private sector, the MDVs, bilateral financing agencies, and I see people from the US government here present. Of course, the private sector by itself. We need to think big and we need to think partnerships. And my last example, I promise I will finish soon, is again in Chile. We helped put together a green hydrogen facility. I like to call it a syndicate of MDBs because IDB, the World Bank, KfW, the European Investment Bank, we all came together to support a great initiative by the Chilean government. And in terms of financing from MDBs, it's $1 billion, but there are also resources, of course, a lot of them, from the Chilean government. As I said before, there are opportunities beyond Chile. I want to mention also a project we are supporting in Barbados, a 50 megawatt solar generation facility, and some work we're doing in the public sector in Trinidad and Tobago. So to finish, I would like to highlight our new institutional strategy, IDB Impact Plus, which has energy transition at its core. President Ilan Golfan has been leading us towards thinking big, thinking larger ambition, thinking transformational changes. And this institutional strategy, IDB Impact Plus, serves as a guidance for the IDB Group to help Latin America and the Caribbean with the bigger issues, including clean energy. With this, I want to thank again everyone involved, and I think we need to hear from the experts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin, and thank you, Florencia, for your remarks. And I just want to highlight the importance of this partnership we have with the IDB to work on the energy transition, and also the importance of the Wilson Center and other civil society actors in pushing for solutions and trying to fill those policy gaps for the energy transition, and highlighting Latin America's role, its strategic role in the global energy transition. I'm also thankful for the esteemed panelists we have here, Jose Miguel from Corfo, Rafael Matas from IDB Invest, James Calloway from MAE Energy. And we're also joined by two virtual panelists, the Minister of Industry, Energy and Mining, Elisa Facio, and Sebastian Delgui from Fortescue. I'd like to begin with Jose Miguel from Corfo. It's an important institution nationally in Chile. It plays a strategic role in the country's energy transition. And under former President Piñera, a national green strategy was launched in 2020, which has been updated under the current administration under President Gabriel Boric. And it's quite ambitious. For those that maybe looked in 2020 at kind of the projections that Chile was looking at, by 2050, the idea is that green hydrogen exports could reach about $30 billion per year. The national strategy is nonpartisan, which is what we like at the Wilson Center to see, that there's a política de Estado, a state policy in Chile, and that this strategy is seen support across political parties and coalitions in Chile, including under the leadership of the current president to update and make advancements to this strategy. So, Jose Miguel, two questions to get us started. First, can you explain a little bit more to us what green hydrogen actually is? Florencia alluded to it, but for those of us that might need an update on our chemistry 101 and what this can actually be used for, I think that would be useful. There's a spectrum of color, and I would be biased toward the green part of that spectrum. And so, if you could explain kind of what it's used for, what's this new commodity really going to be? Where is it really economical, and where is it not? My understanding is, you're not going to be using this to heat your home, but like Florencia alluded to, that there is hard to abate sectors, and there's a lot of promise there. And then lastly, can you kind of dive in a little bit more into what is the national strategy today under the current government? Where do you see green hydrogen development going in Chile? And what's Corfo really doing to attract private capital investment for this new nascent industry?
How many days I have? No, well, thank you very much for the invitation, first to the Wilson Center and then to the IDB. This is really a pleasure being again here in Washington, D.C., where I lived for 4 years. So it's a fantastic place. I already see some friends and colleagues, and this is also very important for us as in representation of the Chilean government coming here, to see potential partners and current partners in different dimensions, not only multilaterals like the IDB, which is as already Florencia was mentioned, very, very relevant in the following up of our strategy, but also new partners coming from elsewhere. I assume everyone knows what is green hydrogen, why it's important, or I have to go into detail?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Okay, all right. Why is green, and Florencia and also Benjamin mentioned some advantages that South America may have, but that's one hidden advantage which I was playing a little bit, which also is very relevant why our region is very important. One thing to know is hydrogen as a technology is a very old technology. It's already been for more than 50, 60 years. And this is very relevant in terms of sometimes when you develop a new sector, the technology gaps is an issue, especially related with the intellectual property rights issues. This is not the case, which have been a very hard and very strong hurdle for certain countries which are slightly lagging behind, where technology gaps is an issue. But it's not the case in hydrogen. This is a very relevant issue because sometimes firms who want to invest in green hydrogen-related activities have to have in mind that the technology is there, mainly. There have been, new developments we will speak a little bit, new technology in electrolysis, windmills, etc. But the basic things are there. And meaning it's not the case in Latin America, but in other sectors, in other regions where people are already trained in these things. So it's not like AI or very new technologies. The second one, why green? The difference here is not hydrogen; it's the color. Why green? The whole difference is the source of energy that you use to separate, the molecules in water between hydrogen and oxygen. The process is called electrolysis. Sorry, the words in English is different. The source of the energy that you normally use to separate this is the whole difference. If you produce this energy based on fossil fuels, like, say, oil, it's called like black, hydrogen, or dark, or whatever called, very dark kind of. If you use, for example, gas, you call it blue hydrogen. But if you use, say, energy coming from, energies like, solar or wind-based, you call it green hydrogen. That's the whole difference. In terms of technology, the process is very simple. You use electricity, and the relevance is where the electricity is created. That's the whole difference. And then the steps moving forward to produce hydrogen, which is mainly separate water. And then you use, and it's very difficult to use the hydrogen directly, especially for transportation process. It's very complicated. It's literally you're holding and running with a bomb with wheels if you transport hydrogen, because you need a lot of pressure and a few other technical things which consumes a lot of energy as well. So normally you transform the hydrogen in other energy solution. Ammonia is the most common one, which is a liquid. Mainly you can use all the infrastructure that you already have, for example, to transport oil, you can use very easily transform to use ammonia. And then normally you do on the demand side, on the ports and where off-takers, you normally go the reverse process and to use hydrogen. This is very, very easily. There are certain subproducts of this process. You can do fertilizers using the ammonia, and you need some inputs as well. And you can use, for example, e-fuels. And this is very relevant for a country like Chile, which normally we import all the fuel that we produce. But if you produce e-fuels based on green hydrogen, at the end of the day, you can become exports. And it's more interesting on the e-fuels, you have to take CO2 from the air and put it in the process. And then it's coming, liberalized when it's, applied on the automobile. So it's carbon neutral. You take CO2 to produce the e-fuel, and then when you run the car, it went away, so it's neutral. This is very relevant because, there's a lot of discussion about, electromobility in terms of cars. And there's a lot of dispute, in the car industry, which technology trajectory they will use. And probably what we already know, there's going to be both for several years or probably decades, meaning electromobility is one thing, but also the use of e-fuels the other thing. Because you have the stock of cars that you already have, that are too many, to swap into the electromobility at once. So coming back to the green hydrogen issue, why our region has a competitive advantage? It's mainly, as already been said, there are two main advantages. The one, which is already known by everyone, is the marginal cost of energy production on green sources could be very, very low in our region because of the sun that we have in several other countries and because of the wind that we have in several other countries. This is the most relevant and the most obvious one. But there's a second one which is very interesting and is related with land and space. This sector is very intensive in land and space, and this is one of the problems that countries like continental Europe has today. It's not only related that they don't have the amount of wind and sun that we expected. They don't have place where to put all these windmills and electrolytes and all that stuff because the space is restricted. And then you can understand why using offshore mechanisms, for example. So one of the advantages that we have in Latin America, especially countries like Chile, for example, or Argentina, or a few other ones, is we have in the places where you have the highest radiation and the places where you have the strongest wind, it's not that the case, but literally nobody lives there, and you have a lot of space and land. So, for example, one of the projects that now is going on the revision and the permits process in Chile, only one of them probably will need more than 500 towers and air mills in Chile. And it's the amount of land that you need to put 500 of them there is enormous. So this is one of the advantages. And despite the fact that we are far away, especially Chile, from the final markets, still is compensated because of the advantages related with the marginal cost of production of energy, and secondly, related with the space and land. And this is becoming one of the things that Florence has already mentioned, that the impact in the local communities have to be taken very seriously in how you organized the use of the land, which our experience in Latin America has not been very happy, I would say, in thinking about this, at least lately. I'm using mainly the Chilean case, at least. This is one of the things that. The other thing, which is I think very relevant. So what I'm saying is Latin America, and especially Chile, I'm sorry I'm speaking mainly because of Chile, because now I'm sitting on Corfu, but is disadvantage to create a supply of derivatives of green hydrogen that can support the transformation and the challenge that the world is facing now related with the climate change and CO2 emissions. That's one thing. Having said that, it's very important, at least from our point of view here in Chile, is the following. We, at the end of the day, we will take this advantage based on what we call, the economists will say, a basic comparative advantage. And we used in our favor this comparative advantage, avoiding probably decisions that we haven't taken in the past, some of our countries. And it's related to what the economists will say, we don't want to become, in these sectors, an enclave economy. What this means, that normally you use a natural resource advantage, you create the capacity to export these, say, derivatives of green hydrogen, and the rest of the economy, in a certain way, is not related or linked or have all the effects directly, meaning creation of suppliers and manufacturing networks, etc., related with the green hydrogen. Countries already have a positive effect related with tax and a few other things, which is very important and very relevant. But still, if you see the story of certain countries which are naturally resources based and became more developed, I'm thinking on Finland, Australia, and New Zealand, those ones. I'm not thinking on Korea, no Ireland, or a few others, or Japan, because they don't have a lot of base of natural resources. I'm thinking on the first three ones. The way they have done this is create this more knowledge-intensive sectors surrounding these natural resources-based sectors. And our view is that the invisible hand of the market is not enough to do that. And we have to do it in a more proactive way with the private sector, together with the public sector, together with academia, etc. And this is one thing, it goes to your second point, is what we're trying to do and through this strategy is exactly that. We know that we have an advantage, and we know probably 75% of our production of ammonia will be exported to countries like Japan on one side, continental Europe on the other side, and a few others. And this is good and very good news. But 25% will be used internally. And the way that we're doing, and this is the second pillar of the Chilean national strategy of hydrogen, is how to promote this to that traditional sectors which are very heavily intense in energy. I'm thinking on mining, I'm thinking on agro-industry, I'm thinking on transportation, but especially the first two, which already are very important sectors in Chile, how to help them to make the transformation to green energies. And this will become a very important and another opportunity to create, the network of suppliers of technology that's already known everywhere to do this process together with the large mining sectors at the same time. So we see there a second opportunity to create more added value in your own country. And I'm finished with this. And there's another linkages that we see are very relevant because the demand of certain equipments will be so high in countries like us. And we are slightly further away from where currently today is the production of this equipment, that we see opportunities to create the conditions that the manufacturing of these bits and parts and equipment can be done in other countries. I'm thinking of the ones who already been mentioned, like electrolysis or wind towers, windmills, etc. That all the elements that you need to produce that are in our countries. All the materials are in our countries. The technology, I already said, is very well known, most of them. So we have an opportunity there to create this network of suppliers of this kind of pieces and parts. We as Corfo, and now I'm finishing to your question, what we do in Corfo, we're doing several dimensions, but I want to stress one which could be of your interest, is we now have an open competition for foreign and local firms to want to establish in Chile and produce electrolysis and to make arrangements with a demand that will come from the developers of the green industry. And until today, still open, we have a lot of manifestations of interest to produce electrolysis in Chile. And part of our job is to coordinate this, and we have a very small amount of subsidy to do this, especially the pre-engineering studies, etc. And also, at the same time, we have an open call for what we call Technical Center of Green Hydrogen Development at Magallanes, because we know the technology is still is old, but it's still going very fast in terms of new applications for those firms and institutions who want to establish in Magallanes and to work with the developers, new technology and new knowledge that can be applied in these sectors. What I'm saying is we have a lot of opportunities in Latin America. Some are obvious ones, and others are not obvious. And part of the role we're trying to play, and I will thank IDB have been very, very keen and very kind in helping us, go through this process, not only in the financial sector, but also, as Florence was saying, on the technological assistance, etc., a few other mechanisms, and to move very fast, as much as we can. But still, this is a very long run. It's a marathon. For example, our current government, we will not see any single, of this large green hydrogen producer being set up by the end of this government. So we're taking the strategy we have done developing the previous government, and in a certain way, the starting of the building up of the new construction, the larger ones, will be on the next government. But our job today has been to create all the conditions that not only that the current developers can go as fast as they can in the investment, but also in a certain way to create the conditions that we can at the same time not only build up this network of knowledge-based providers, but also human capital formation that will be needed in 3 years' time, especially in various areas like Antofagasta in the north and Magallanes in the south, and also to give signals from the investment side, for example, with the creation of the first in the world of a green hydrogen facility, and the IDB have been very, very important on this, to give signals to the financial sector, especially worldwide, that this is a very serious decision by the Chilean state, not only the Chilean government, to give signals that this will be a very long run, despite the fact who is in power at that time. So this is a very long conversation, just gives us some highlights of the things that could be of your interest about what we're doing in the green hydrogen strategy in Chile.
That's great. Thank you, Jose Miguel. And just to pull out from what you said there, you mentioned the constraints of space, and you mentioned that there's a comparative advantage with Chile, but with Latin America at large in terms of the marginal cost, the ability to produce renewable green electrons at a very, very competitive rate to then build up to green hydrogen. And President Boric recently traveled to Europe, where he met with several heads of state. He also spoke at the Peace Summit in Switzerland. Yep. And there was a focus, from what I understand, on the energy transition. You were part of the presidential delegation to Europe. And I'm curious to know, what are your takeaways, or what outcomes were there for Chile's green hydrogen industry? Or are there sectors that are considered strategic for economic development and moving up the value chain in Chile? And what does that partnership with the EU mean? What does a partnership with the US mean? How do you differentiate and look at long-term where you can find investment for these new industries?
Yeah, it is part of our job at Corfo mainly, and part of this government have been at least to push forward 2 areas, which has already been said by Florencia and Benjamin and yourself as well, is mainly saying the focus of our effort in this area is related to how we became decarbonized by 2050. So why I'm saying this? This is very relevant because we are not taking that very old tradition of industrial policy and picking winners in terms of sectors and industries. We are thinking green hydrogen and the lithium strategy functional to decarbonization, and this is very relevant. We're using that approach. And the also approach that we're using as well is that the state plays more an entrepreneurial role than a state-owned role. Okay, and this is also so you make agreements and coordination with the private sector how to move this agenda as fast as you can. So this is one thing. The second one is because the conditions what is happening in the worldwide, Chile is becoming very, very interesting for certain regions of the world, because not only we can provide copper, we can provide green hydrogen and lithium. So if you use these 3 factors, it's at the center of all the decarbonization process happening elsewhere. So concerning your question, we see, for example, why we went this time to Central Europe and Continental Europe, because Continental Europe have the problem that they don't have, all these basic advantages that we have as a region in Latin America, and especially in Chile. It's not the case in US, where you have, still have the size, and you have certain sectors where they can produce, and the IRA, is related with that. It's the same in China, for example. But Continental Europe is a very interesting candidate and a demand for us. We know, in the case of green hydrogen, we are running with other countries, especially some from Africa and a few other ones who are going in this direction, the same direction, and they're going very fast, which is fine. But we also know that this is not a zero-sum game. The demand of this green hydrogen will be so high worldwide that we, despite the fact that we have all the investment that is planned in Chile, we cannot provide, you already mentioned, not more than 30% of the total demand can be supplied by our countries. So give us an opportunity to collaborate with other countries, especially with those who are on the supply side, but also on the demand side. The second issue, which is very relevant, I'm speaking the green hydrogen and the lithium, is related with the demand as well. We all know that the price or the marginal cost of production of green hydrogen is still too high. It's almost doubling the cost of production of blue hydrogen. But we know that if you see, the advantages of the knowledge transition, a few other things, a scale, etc., the marginal cost is descending very fast in a few ways, not only on the capex, but also on the opex, etc., etc. Now the challenge has already been said is related with the off-takers. How the off-takers, they're starting now to incorporate despite the fact the prices is still very high. So it's a learning process. And continental Europe, for example, is, they are taking that decision to becoming early adopters and off-takers, despite the fact that someone have to pay the difference on the price, okay? And they have developed certain mechanisms to do that. So that's why we are being, going, President Boric went to China, he had been here, we went to continental Europe, we are now going to Emirates, in 2 weeks' time, because there are several places where Chile can provide these kind of solutions. And we see this as from Chile, an opportunity to become more related with certain countries and for the demand they have for products that we can provide. There's an opportunity to take to make collaborative works in terms of knowledge adaptation and knowledge creation, which is also relevant because some of this knowledge related with the hydrogen technologies are normally in more developed countries. We have the opportunities now to become in a more time-consistently process and given signal that it's not only this government that is related with this and have a commitment, but also give signals through, for example, the creation of the facility and few other policies, mainly saying that you have to trust in a country that is looking this as a long-run marathon. And this is very relevant where you have to make investments at the demand side, the off-takers, that will be trustable in the future. And there's a fourth dimension, which I haven't said before, but could be of your interest. We are thinking that in the future, probably, and we work with several former colleagues at the academia here in US, for example, and in Europe, that probably at some time we will see a process of moving certain industry, which now are closer to the demand areas. I'm thinking on steel, cement, and data centers. They will start moving where the green energy is produced because of certain costs that were related. So Latin America also have an opportunity to receive traditional sectors where they want to swap into the green energy sources as part of the industrialization process. For example, it's very clear that in the Magallanes area in 10 years' time, when all these installations are already built up, there will be a marvelous opportunity for large data centers to establish in the Magallanes area to produce, the data, because Chile is already connected to the world, so it's ubiquitous, can be elsewhere. They're highly intensive in energy. Now the people are asking, complain that data centers are needing more than 10% of the total energy that is needed in the world, and it's fossil fuel based. And now they have to move to the green. For them, it will be more interest to become very close where the green energy is produced. And because, electrons, they can fly. They can go through, the cables or whatever. So this is another opportunity for countries like South America it's a third wave to become uncertain because, the cement and iron, they produce CO2. And these sectors, they need CO2. And just an anecdote, and I'm finished with this. The demonstration plant that we have in Magallanes is a full plant of producing e-fuels. The only problem that they have is this is like magic. It's like 2 hectares or 3 hectares where you have literally wind, water, and then you have e-fuels on the other side. And the only thing extra they need is CO2. And the technology to take CO2 from the air is not fully developed. So
This is a HIF.
HIF.
Yeah.
And this plant is taking CO2 from a brewery in Mendoza. What I'm saying, they need CO2. So some of these plants who are producing CO2 to produce e-fuels, the best is to have another ones who's taking the CO2 out and put it on the e-fuels. So this is part of the relationship between these traditional sectors and these new sectors, where also Latin America and especially Chile may have certain advantages.
Excellent. I'd like to stay just for a brief moment on Chile here. I know there's a lot of other countries that also have this comparative advantage. And I'd like to ask James Colloway here, who has a long and active background in South America, where he's been involved in business, including in Argentina and the lithium industry there. And James, it'd be great to learn a little bit more about your company that you chair, MAE Energy, which is based not in Magallanes at the extreme south, but the extreme north in northern Chile. And for those that aren't aware, in Mejillones, it's an important hub for Chile in terms of natural gas infrastructure. It includes an incredibly important LNG terminal there for the country. But there's growing discussion to transform Mejillones into a hub, into this technology cluster that Jose Miguel was alluding to, not just for green hydrogen, but green ammonia, which can be used to help decarbonize maritime shipping, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other uses for it. So it'd be great to provide some background first, I guess, on how you became involved in business in South America, but more importantly, what's your current focus in terms of green hydrogen, and what are some of the specifics related to this Volta project that I've read a little bit about, but not a lot?
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's a real honor to be up here with all of you and see you again after seeing you in London the last time. And my background, I won't spend too much time on it, but for the last 17 years, I've been investing heavily in various projects in both Argentina and Chile. And the one common denominator is they're all focused on trying to build large-scale industrial capacity that brings down emissions. So for me, my life's work is culminating in that focus and purpose. And so I won't do anything that it doesn't do that. And so that guides you pretty well. So I was very fortunate 17 years ago to start a project in Jujuy in Argentina, and it ended up being one of the great pieces of lithium production in the world at Alaraz, and my little company turned into a big company, and that was good news for me. A lot of hard work, and we had to overcome many challenges, both political challenges during the Kirchner administration and just the fact of building something at 14,000 feet in the middle of nowhere. That'll pucker you up for sure. I started being interested in Chile first for solar development, and in Chile they have a very interesting program called PMGDs, which are basically distributed solar projects that are 9 megawatts or less in size. And our company, we created a company called Distributed Power Partners, and we sort of helped solve some problems in Chile, because if you do one small project at a time, the economies of scale for mobilization, they eat up the opportunity that's afforded. So we were pretty innovative in developing clusters. So we would develop 8 of them at a time, and that allowed us to get the economies of scale, but also to deliver the goods. And we built 32 projects over the last 10 years in the Atacama. So we're one of the larger producers. We're private, so nobody knows about us, but that's fine with me. I don't really need to have everybody know what I'm doing. I think that that experience working in the Atacama led to about 3.5 years ago, myself and my 2 partners, we decided to divert some of the profits we were making from solar and started a company called MAE. We started with a blank sheet of paper and basically said, okay, where do we think is the best place in the world to build a large-scale, ultimately hydrogen/ammonia facility? We actually happen to think that Mejillones may just be the best place on Earth, literally, and that's really driven by a couple of things. A lot of times people forget about this, but if you ask yourself the question, where do all the astronomers want to put their terrestrial telescopes? It's not in Australia, it's not in Europe, it's in Chile in the Atacama, and there's a reason. There's a freak of nature in the Atacama, which we should call it that, about how we have the Pacific Ocean, this very narrow country, and then this giant wall called the Andes. It sets up a strange atmospheric condition that makes we call it irradiance, which is the amount of energy that hits per square meter, is the best in the world. It's about 20% better than the Sahara, which seems counterintuitive to you, but it is. So if you look at irradiance maps, it's very interesting, and they exist. We know pretty much where the irradiance is around the world. There's a color right there that's a little strip that's the Atacama Desert that is fundamentally better than anything else on Earth by 20%. Now, right now, it doesn't seem that important, but in the context of competitiveness, it's very, very important, okay? So that's the good news. And so we've set up this company. We've been working for 3.5 years. We've been working very closely with the government because this is a public-private initiative. I mean, there's no way you build these large-scale projects without it. We've worked very closely with the community. I mean, it's so important. And we've worked hard with listening and listening and listening. We are in the middle of the environmental impact study, answering the questions. We've submitted our large-scale EIS, which I think is very rare to have a large-scale project at this point that's done that. Our team is all Chilean, by the way. I'm very proud of our team. And, you know, one of the things about Chile that's I think should be mentioned is, you know, I've been working down there a long time, and the talent that's in that country is really exceptional. Hardworking, smart, well-educated, good technical people. So it's not like a place where you got to go find people. You just need to find the people there. And I'm very proud of my Chilean team. I'm the only gringo up there, you know. We are the most advanced project in the Atacama Desert by a long shot. I'm not as interested, at least, I think with e-fuels it's different, but in the case of straight up going to ammonia, one of the things that I always look at as a risk issue is how complicated is the flow sheet. Because I've been dealing with some really complicated flow sheets. I'm about to build a $1.5 billion facility in Nevada that took $200 million of investment by me to do the engineering. So I mean that's when you get complicated flow sheets. But in terms of making, you know, taking water and converting it into separating it, it's well understood, as you pointed out rightly. And actually making it into ammonia is even more mature. It's very well understood. And interestingly, once a molecule is an ammonia molecule, it doesn't actually, you can't even take a chemist can't sit there and tell you how it got there. They're the same. They're the same molecule. It's just that one has huge emissions and the other doesn't, okay? So that's good news, by the way, for business, because what I have to do is be able to move this stuff, whether it's inside of Chile or in the region or to Korea or Japan or Europe or wherever it goes. It's a heck of a lot easier to deal with ammonia than it is to deal with hydrogen. I actually think that the bridge to hydrogen has to come through ammonia, in my opinion, and maybe e-fuels. But this idea we're going to build out large-scale hydrogen facilities and distribution, et cetera, that's a longer-term problem. It's where we're heading, okay? But we only lose about 15% of the, it's about 15% loss when we convert it back. All we do is crack it at the other end, and we can use it however we want for hydrogen. So I'm very excited about Mejillones. Mejillones has another very important advantage, and I want to make sure that that everybody knows this, is, you know, Chile actually has a fair significant use of ammonia. It turns out because it's used, ammonia nitrate is the blasting material for all the mines. Yeah. So, you know, right there, and one of the reasons I liked Mejillones is, as a city, it already is the place where all the ammonia that comes into the country comes into to that port. So the people there understand ammonia, they understand the production and storage of ammonia, and so I think it's a natural place, and I certainly hope that we'll get rid of this nasty ammonia that's polluting our world and substitute our ammonia right there in Mejillones, and it goes to the copper mines as one of the early domestic uses, because nobody has to think very much. It's just a question of price. So now I want to just, I'm going to run out of time here. I know I'm taking too much time, but One of the things I also want to make sure we don't leave here without talking a little bit about is there's this nasty thing in private sector, which is called the capacity factor. Okay, and you know, when you live in the world I live in, where I'm having to talk to bankers, I'm having to talk to private sector people and to international financing, in the end it gets to this very pointed question of how much money are you going to make? Okay, you can't escape it. It's how much money is this going to make? It's got to make a return on investment, otherwise it's not going to get $1.5 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, period. So one of the problems we have in Chile is that it's the cheapest place you can possibly be during the daytime, and it's really expensive for power at night, okay? And that's a problem because plants can't run just in the daytime. You need your plants running at least 80% of the time. Even if you dial it back a little bit, you need them running more than what the sun can provide by itself. And so one of the questions that, and by the way, I want to thank Corfu because y'all been doing some real, you didn't talk about it, but some really deep thinking about systemic charges on the grid, because right now, you know, people have developed this over years, and all of a sudden you realize that the cost of an electron is double what it actually costs to produce, and it's all tolls and charges that have been built up over the years to support a bunch of worthy things. I'm not arguing about it, but it puts such a burden on the ability to use the grid to wield renewable power. Like, for instance, an example in the Atacama, it's very interesting. As you move up towards the Andes in some of these valleys, you get excellent nocturnal wind. Excellent. I mean, really, it's not as good as down in the south. Of course, that's when all the trees are bent over. But it's pretty darn good. But the problem is, if you try to get it to my plant in Mejillones, I've doubled the cost to get it there. Okay, so there's got to be a careful consideration of systemic charges as it relates to this industry. I think, and you know this, and by the way, Corfu's taken the lead on this. They've got some great, smart people working on it, and I thank you for that. I really do, because y'all have really been the leaders in thinking about it. But we have to address this issue, because in the end, a ton of ammonia, okay, the best case is I've got to be able to sell it for $700 a ton or less. I mean, you can play around with it, maybe $750, but it really would be better at you know, $650. Okay, because we don't want to impose on the public sector such a subsidy per ton, because that's not a sustainable idea. Now, I'm going to say one last thing, and then I'm going to stop. Fascinating thing is happening, and you've really brought it up. So I'm like I'm you know, his sidekick.
We haven't discussed this before.
No, we haven't had this conversation, but it's embarrassing how close we are. It turns out, and this is if you wanted to know what my central thesis and why I'm investing tens of millions of dollars a year in my money down there doing this, okay, besides I want to solve the problem, is the following: is that the cost of solar and mass storage is falling at a rate that people do not understand. Mm-hmm. They're misjudging this. It's falling much faster, particularly storage. I mean, let me just put it to you. Let me give you an example, so it's not just abstract. A year ago, when we went out to get bids for mass storage, because you see, the way that we can win and make the Atacama the most valuable place on the earth is once we can merge together the solar with the storage and the cost of the electrons, not going through the grid but directly into our plant, is low enough, then we're really into building a big industry. And so the question really is, solar is so cheap now. I mean, it's a problem. I mean, it's a problem for the country. They got so much solar during the daytime that the price is going to damn near zero, and that's you know. So it's fallen so fast since I've been there in the last 11 years, I can't even believe it. But the question was storage, because if we can build up long-term storage capabilities, then we really have got something. It was $4 per kilowatt from Tesla bid. I'll just tell you that, okay? $4 a kilowatt for storage. It's now $1. $1. It's falling like a rock. And this is the question, is how far is the bridge that we need to get over between storage and solar together being the answer? And we're close in the Atacama.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. We need a bridge. It may be that we have to have a government involvement in helping with tolls and charges so we can wield some of the wind on a short-term basis. But I don't think it's going to be necessary. I actually think that 10 years from now, the reason that Chile is going to be like, the Saudi Arabia of this industry is because of the Atacama. It gives them a fundamental competitive advantage, cannot be replicated. Mother Nature gave it to you. And I think that it's the combination of solar and storage that represents the opportunity. We got a bridge there. We need all kind of help across a whole bunch of different areas, which we could talk about later. But look, the government is already working to try to help us, okay? They're thinking hard about this. And I think together and with the support of the international finance, we can start building MAE's project in Mayonas. And by the way, it's a $2.5 billion project. I'm not doing a pilot test. I don't need a pilot test. I need a big project that tests out in the bean counters, the numbers. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm very excited about it.
Thanks so much, James. Before moving on to Uruguay, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the barriers, the challenges, not just to green hydrogen, but the energy transition as a whole. Within Latin America, there's still a lot of countries whose exports are mostly dependent on oil, gas, coal, all of which will need to be phased out over time. And during the last COP in the United Arab Emirates, where Jose Miguel will be visiting soon, there was a real global commitment for the first time put in writing to phase out fossil fuels. And there's been serious commitments made to triple renewable energy production and capacity by 2030. 6 short years remains, right? And this includes the U.S., it includes China. So we're in a critical decade with just a few years remaining with all these important goals and targets to reach. And Rafael, we know that there are a lot of potential bottlenecks from transmission, permitting, all the regulatory processes and designs for these intermittent sources of energy. And for green hydrogen, there's a lot to think about in terms of logistics, transportation, and there's a real learning curve, as Jose Miguel mentioned, for governments, but also, as James mentioned, for the private sector as well, to think about how do you store this, how do you transport it. So how do you see, Rafael, countries in South America overcoming some of these challenges? How would you identify some of the difficulties that you might think could be solved or worked on in partnership with governments in the region? And how would you highlight the urgency to ramp up renewable energy production so that you can have a cost-competitive green hydrogen industry for potential export in the near future?
Okay, thank you very much, and to the Wilson Center for this invitation. I work at the IDB Invest, the private sector arm of IDB. But actually, we act as a group, as IDB group. We recently had a capital increase, $3 billion capital increase. And one of the key paramount matters that were discussed there is how to have an introspective view of how we can operate more as a group. Why I'm saying this, because I cannot see or understand any other sector or new technology in which a full public-private synergy is more needed, no? So basically, going through it, and for me, the two matters are intertwined. I mean, James mentioned it. Non-conventional renewable energy going down, going at scale and reducing the price, is key for the development of new technologies. I mean, those two things go hand in hand. And as per the green hydrogen development, what I saw, I mean, we've been in several conferences in the last years. I think in 2022 there was this green hydrogen frenzy. Always investments, billions and billions. And when we would start 2024 and we started going to conferences and whatnot, you could see that there was more a green hydrogen realism.
Yeah.
So I think people took a pause and said, let's chill. And I think that they were this is the right time to make the right questions, which is regulation, feasibility, and where we need to really make the investments. partnerships and integration as well. And actually, as Latin America is expected to grow by 48% in terms of energy demand up to 2030, and actually the countries need to meet the Paris alignment objectives, so fossil fuels tend to go down. Here comes the big question, no? And I think the answer is speed and scale, as we always say, but structure. I think that this little pause has given us the right moment in order just to build through the right structure. So in that sense, in terms of like the vision, together with our colleagues of the energy division of IDB and BitLab, we've created. I mean, we're working on this IDB group vision on green hydrogen. No, so as I said, the synergy approach is like from the public side. Well, we need regulation, we need incentives, we need technology, we need like actually work on how the Southern Cone could be like kind of have an advantage in terms of exports, in terms of like kind of how we communicate. And from the private sector IDB, we talk about feasibility, technical cooperations, financing pilots. We have already 2 mandate projects we're working on that Florencia mentioned in Barbados and Paraguay. And finally, last but not least at all, mobilization. We're not going to do this alone. It's not a matter of governments, MFIs or DFIs. I mean, we're going to need all hands on deck in order just to get offtakes and capital, like equity. That's absolutely needed. Our integrated vision, and that's one of the issues like going after Florencia, but she put it really nicely. Like kind of there's four key issues to tackle that we've defined. Regulation. I mean, at this moment, there's not in some of the countries, South American countries, there's not even a regulation for storage yet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let alone where we're going with green hydrogen. In that sense, the IDB Energy has worked a lot. I mean, I think we have 10 to 12 green hydrogen roadmaps in our country. So we're just setting one new for Paraguay. This is absolutely paramount. Infrastructure. I mean, we need big infrastructure, and we need one infrastructure like that we can just be efficient regionally. Mm-hmm. So partnerships, again, are important. And also there's some ideas about how we reuse some certain existing infrastructure of obsolete business that are going to come from these new commitments that we're having. Environmental and social engagement, as Florencia mentioned, is very important. I'm going to look at it as another angle as well in terms of de-risking. I mean, if we really want green hydrogen, this needs a lot of land. It needs a lot of interest. And in that case, like the social involvement of the population is going to be key. There has to be a real stake. Is it going to be equity? Is it going to be a lien on land? This has to be a real involvement in order just to be this industry feasible, and in a way of de-risking projects. That's also important. And finally, financial feasibility. I mean, the big jump of non-conventional renewable energy, and James, you were mentioning it, is how this is profitable. The numbers need to give. And in this sense, we're working like fairly hard in order just to create like the feasibility, pilot projects. As I said, we're financing 2 projects already, one from Green H2 Energy and the other one for fertilizers in Paraguay. Also, we're just doing some feasibility works in Brazil with Porto Sergipe and others in the state of Ceará. And of course, and now we're going to get into the partnerships. Like we're just partnering with Corfo in the fund for financing projects in Chile. But also we're talking about in Chile with Fundación Chile and other entities such as Astris Finance. In order to go one step back, I think we're going to need to bring feasible projects to the block like really fast. And actually that takes about like project preparation. The funding for project preparation. And that's going to be very risky because there's going to have a lot of hit and error, but there has to be funds there. And there's another topic I'm going to mention. Not only talking about concessional funding. That's not what I'm referring. Concessional funding is going to work from our point of view to bridge some gaps, but concessional funding in a 2 billion project is not the solution, you know. So those are the key pillars as well that we're pursuing. And the next one where I wanted to talk about is mobilization. We need to bring, as I said, like all the parties on deck. And mobilization comes up to de-risking and standardization. Again, going to IDB, we're just producing some sort of a certificate, green hydrogen certificate, in order just to standardize the quality of the production itself. From the IDB Invest side, one of our key roles would be just provide the de-risking measures. Again, partnerships like IDB can guarantee part of it. We can provide first losses, and the thing is that this is the right to apply the right tools to a project finance on a project finance on a project finance on a project finance. These deals are extremely complex and have many components. So I think that that's a very important value added. And partnerships. I think we're one of the institutions in which we have like more clout in order just to link bankable projects with the seal of IDB Invest, IDB Group, with impact financing in Europe, the US. I think that's the right key to how to bring that financing to the region. And you mentioned it again, of takers, and capital. That's extremely important. And finally, which products we have? I mean, obviously, reduced level of equity. We need to bring equity to the region because our partnership is reduced. Long-term financing, technical cooperations, and our ability to mobilize. And two items, you said it, one, the destiny of green hydrogen boils down in a large scale on the destiny and reduction of price of non-conventional renewable energy. We need to scale on non-conventional renewable energy so the next industry is feasible. And finally, for me, is absolutely necessary transmission. Transmission, not only as an investment, which is key, but also look back on the existing CapEx and the utilization of artificial intelligence in order to improve the performance, sometimes by 20-25% of the bat of the existing transmission. That's also like kind of paramount. In both cases, just to reduce the price and to do the next industry feasible. No, so I would stop there.
No, thank you.
We can just kind of further.
No, thank you, Rafael.
On other matters.
I'd like to move to Uruguay, and hopefully we can pull up the Minister Facio here. Well, Chile's not alone. I think our AV team will hopefully get her up on the screen here, along with Sebastian. But Chile's not alone in terms of its commitment to the energy transition, to developing competitive renewable energy projects, and to producing green hydrogen. Uruguay, despite being a much smaller country than Chile, I think it's about 3 or 3.5 million people, it's still showing the world that decarbonization can be a considerable economic development opportunity. Right now, Uruguay generates about 90 to 95%, or it's been even higher, I think, in recent years, of its electricity from renewable energy. And it's a good signal that this can be done and that other countries can do it. So, Minister, first, thank you for joining us and taking the time to talk a little bit about Uruguay's experience. Uruguay also has a national strategy or a roadmap, among other programs. And I was hoping you could provide us all a bit of background on what Uruguay's vision is for green hydrogen and what Uruguay's already achieved in terms of really ramping up its renewable energy capacity and where it sees the development of green hydrogen going in the future.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the invitation. At the beginning of the 21st century, Uruguay set out to expand its use of renewable energy sources to decarbonize its electricity matrix and reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels. We implemented mechanisms that enable the incorporation of energy from biomass, wind, and sun on a large scale, achieving over 90% renewable energy in our electricity matrix. And it's important to highlight that this transformation is achieved by 99% electrification throughout the territory. Thanks to an aggressive adoption of renewable resources over just 10 years, Uruguay now consumes roughly the same physical volume of oil as it did in the 1965. This achievement is remarkable given that all drivers of energy consumption have increased significantly. The population has grown by 30%, the economy has tripled in constant pesos, and the number of vehicles has surged exponentially. Internationally, Uruguay ranks second after Denmark in renewable energy integration. Our success in incorporating renewable energies into the electricity matrix aligns with the three dimensions of sustainability. Recent studies show that from an economic perspective, the cost of supplying electricity has decreased due to renewable energy adoption, which has displaced liquid fuels. This transition has proven sustainable, not only environmentally and socially, but also economically. Despite our achievements, we must continue to decarbonize our entire energy matrix, particularly in the transport and industrial sectors, where fossil fuel dependence remains. Electric mobility is a top priority, especially given our renewable grid. Additionally, we are implementing a green hydrogen and derivatives roadmap to develop the domestic market and defossilize our entire energy matrix, with a significant focus on the export market. This roadmap presents a unique opportunity for Uruguay to synthesize green methanol by combining hydrogen with biogenic CO2, paving the way for the production of synthetic fuels for aviation, maritime, and industrial sectors for export. It's important to highlight that we have CO2, biogenic CO2, close to the places where the green hydrogen is going to be produced.
Thank you so much, Minister. I have kind of one interesting question I'd like to pose to you, as well as Jose Miguel briefly, but I'd like to highlight kind of the importance here of international cooperation on the energy transition, and to look toward actors or states like Chile and Uruguay that are taking kind of an active role in showing global leadership that this can be done, that these new industries can be developed. So I'm interested to kind of hear your perspective on how countries should work together to integrate some of their thinking on the energy transition, and perhaps how countries should work together to address some of these challenges, to close infrastructure gaps, to close investment gaps. Chile and Germany, for example, have done some work on this climate club to decarbonize industrial sectors, and I find that as a curious kind of model in terms of Latin America and Europe working together, but I also wonder in terms of kind of the long historic emphasis on economic integration in Latin America and in the Western Hemisphere. How can countries in the region work together? How can Uruguay perhaps work together with Argentina and Chile, or how Chile and Argentina and other countries can work together to pool resources together, to pool human capital and investment together to make this more competitive and a faster approach for the energy transition? Minister, please go ahead.
Thank you. Uruguay worked with a lot of countries. I will start with the United States. Uruguay and the United States have a strong bilateral relationship. Both countries share important values, such as commitment to democracy, the rule of law, robust economic politics, solid labor rights, environmental protection, peaceful resolution of disputes between nations, and commitment to the multilateral system. We are already actively collaborating with the United States on a number of initiatives, including its most recent milestone, a memorandum of understanding signed on April 2024 between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Industry, Energy and Mining of Uruguay, and the Department of Commerce and Department of State of the United States of America. This memorandum seeks to increase cooperation and outline a concrete path forward in the deployment of key critical and emergent technologies on specific areas, including clean technologies, critical minerals, green energy, green hydrogen and derivatives, energy storage, and electrofuels, among other areas. This agreement serves as a framework and reflects a commitment to advance on innovation, sustainability, and addressing global challenges. Moreover, within the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity, APEP, launched in June 2022 with the alliance of 12 countries and the objective of strengthening and promoting economic development and prosperity in the region, Uruguay took a leadership role by co-leading, along with Chile and the United States, the working group related to clean hydrogen. This line of work aims to accelerate the clean energy transition by sharing clean energy and decarbonization goals and promoting the development of clean hydrogen through best practices exchanges in the development of national policy, regulatory, and investment frameworks. The Clean Hydrogen Working Group aims to help all countries assess the viability of clean hydrogen in meeting their national clean energy and climate goals, including, where viable, through commercial development of projects. I also want to highlight that Uruguay, along with the United States and numerous of governmental members, signed the joint declaration that launched the International Hydrogen Trade Forum. The IHTF provides a platform to foster a dialogue seeking to develop and accelerate international hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives trade. As we can see, there is significant potential to increase cooperation between Uruguay, the United States, and the region. Besides, Latin America and South America in particular have historically developed their energy supply in a more sustainable way than many other regions on the planet. Uruguay currently engaged in bidirectional energy exchanges with Brazil and Argentina. However, we have yet to establish more sophisticated modalities to exchange that ensure firmness and long-term contracts, transitioning from occasional exchanges to more robust structured exchanges would enhance the reliability of the region's energy systems. Joint long-term planning is crucial. Currently, each country in the region plans its energy supply, both expansion and operating independently, as if they were isolated islands. It is well known that the optimal solution for the whole is not simply the sum of optimal solutions achieved in isolation. This approach results in a loss of potential wealth for the energy systems across different countries. Regional planning would enable a qualitative improvement in management the sector at a supranational level. Regarding international cooperation, the region already has mechanisms for South-South and triangular exchanges. Uruguay has actively participated in various initiatives, sharing its experiences with other countries in the region. However, as a recently graduated country, Uruguay faces the rapid withdrawal of multiple sources of fundings. Despite this, we continue to develop cutting-edge activities in the energy sector without adequate international support. This challenge is not unique to Uruguay, but is also shared by countries like Chile and Costa Rica, and has been addressed in joint proposals at various international forums. It is essential to find mechanisms to alleviate this situation and gradually support a country's graduation process, especially when we are pioneering innovative activities in the sector. Finally, Uruguay is part of the Climate Club since 2023 and has been actively participating on several strategic exchanges with Pillar 2, emission measurement and definitions for near zero steel and cement, and Pillar 3, boosting international cooperation and partnership, as well as technical meeting on standards and definitions aimed to accelerate industry decarbonization and support the effective implementation of the Paris Agreement. With regards of regional initiatives and recognizing the immense potential of the Latin America and the Caribbean region for clean hydrogen and derivatives production, a declaration to establish a regional certification system, CERTILAC, was signed on 2023 between 14 Latin American Caribbean countries, including Uruguay, with the collaboration of the IDB and the Latin America Energy Organization, OLADE. This system will ensure that clean hydrogen and derivatives produced in the region meets international standards while incorporating aspects specific to Latin America. The importance of certifications lies in creating a global market for clean hydrogen and its derivatives. It assures buyers of the hydrogen's key features like low carbon footprint and origin of the water used. This benefits producers as well, granting them access to markets with incentives, and specific requirements. In this sense, existing initiatives such as CERTILAC aims to facilitate regional trade and future exports to other continents by establishing a system recognized internationally.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'd like now to turn to Sebastian Delgui, the Head of Government, Community, and Communications for Latin America at Fortescue. Sebastian's based in Buenos Aires. He represents a company that's been a major proponent of green hydrogen development worldwide. And Argentina and Brazil are large markets with tremendous potential, and we're hoping to do a lot more work on this with our Brazil Institute at the Wilson Center. Sebastian, could you please provide us just some background on your company and what's possible in terms of generating long-term investments in green hydrogen in South America? And my understanding is that there's been some progress and work you've been doing in Brazil recently that would also be interesting for us to hear.
Sure. Hi, Anders. Hi, everyone, to the audience. First, I would like to thank Wilson Center, Benjamin Gedden for inviting me, and the IDB, Florencia Tademo. Thank you so much, and I congratulate you for creating these spaces to discuss about hydrogen and the potential in Latin America. Anders, if I have your permission, I have a presentation that I will go very fast, but I have good information that I want to highlight, in particular what is happening in Brazil. Last week, Brazil approved a hydrogen law that put a lot of money, put incentives. So if you are okay, very quickly.
Of course, yeah. Go right ahead and show your slides.
Sure. So, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I will go very, very fast. Speaking about Fortescue, is not one of the biggest and success iron ore company of the world. Fortescue is an Australian company. Fortescue now, and I would like to replicate on Miguel's words in terms of technology. Fortescue is the technology group that is accelerating commercial decarbonization through heavy industry rapidly, profitably, and globally. The company announced a couple of years ago a massive investment. I think Fortescue is one of the largest mining company that announced for 2030 a concrete decarbonization plan. The company, that plan is almost $6 billion of investment, and the company is investing, a lot of money on technology. Technology is the key. We understand, we are learning from the technology. Our company is based on Western Australia, as I mentioned before. We produce iron ore, transportation, we have a port, we have our own transportation to the main markets. So the idea is to decarb the whole process by 2030. That's why we have a plan in Gladstone, Australia, that produce electrolysis, 2 gigawatt capacity. That the idea is to sell in Australia and export to the world. We are investing in Australia in renewable energy. The company acquired a couple of years ago one of the largest renewable companies, and the company is investing in solar and wind. There's some figures. The idea is to display around 100 million liters of diesel every year. So these figures are amazing. Also, the company is looking, I will speak after about our hydrogen projects, but we are also very focused and interested on fertilizers. Juan Miguel also mentioned that before, the opportunity and the potential that fertilizers has for Fortescue, doing agreements and potential JVs. The company acquired 2 years ago, Williams Engineers from Formula One, the technology, not the team. The company acquired the technology engineer, that they are leaders on performance and developing electrification and batteries, and they are working on R&D and investigation, working on the mining trucks for our operations in Australia. Also, we have leveraging the IRA. We are working on Phoenix in the US on an hydrogen hub in order to produce per year 1,000 tons of liquefied green hydrogen annually. That project is in feasibility stage. And now, speaking about Brazil, I will be focused on Brazil. We have a project located in the northeast state of Ceará. Ceará, almost 3 years ago, developed a strategy, an hydrogen strategy, working together with the port, the Pecém port, that is located 65 kilometers north to the city of Fortaleza. Pecém also has a free tax zone area, the only free tax zone area that is in operations in Brazil, and also there is an industrial area close to the port. In that industrial area, Brazil produces blades for the wind turbines for Brazil to supply the demand on Brazil, and also export to Europe and to the US. So you have an interesting value chain, and this mature export that is one of the top 5 export ports of Brazil. The location of Pecém is very interesting. We spoke about this. My colleague speakers mentioned, and Pecém has a strategic location for potential markets to US or to Europe. And the other thing that I want to highlight also, this port is owned by the state of Ceará. 70%, and the other shareholder is the Port of Rotterdam. The Port of Rotterdam is one of the, could be, and they are working on that, could be one of the main entrants for hydrogen or green ammonia to Europe. They are working on some pipelines to supply the main markets from Rotterdam to Germany and other countries around. A year ago, the Prime Minister of Netherlands visited Brazil, and they visited PECEM, and both ports, Port of Rotterdam and the Port of PECEM, announced like a green hydrogen corridor between those ports. Something that I will also want to highlight, the state of Ceará, the governor signed more than 35 MOUs with mainly international energy companies and Brazilian companies in order to develop projects in the state of Ceará. So Fortescue is one of the main companies that 2 years ago signed an MOU with the state of Ceará. Since that, we start to develop our project. First, we started in pre-feasibility and modeling and engineer. This is our intention is to produce on a first phase 1-2 gigawatts of electrolysis. This is about 980,000 ammonia tons per year. Our project is green hydrogen, then to turn to green ammonia. We are looking to export to Europe. Of course, we are interested on the domestic demand, but mainly we consider that our project will supply the demand in Europe. We need to build some transition line, of course, an electrolysis plant, compression, desalination plant, and also some service corridor, some infrastructure to export the green ammonia. First phase, 1.2 gigawatts, and a second phase, another 1-2 gigabytes. This is on an overall some pictures of the percent. So why Brazil? Brazil has what I also would like to say, because hydrogen is not the future. Hydrogen is a reality. So despite the challenges in terms of technology and off-takers, in Fortescue, we are fully committed that no one can stop this transition process, and considering as Jose Miguel mentioned, how technology is evolving very quickly. There's a big chance to have these large-scale projects that could be a reality. So Brazil has a robust and developed renewable energy market with over 90%. The renewable penetration in the Northeast region allows us, and our intention is to acquire energy through PPAs on a first stage. Brazil has an energy matrix on 140 megawatts, you have 25 of wind, and you have 15 on solar, and then you have hydro. So the energy is there. Brazil has a robust grid infrastructure that I can say that I can compare with the European grid in terms of energy transportation. Brazil has also, because of that success, public policy approved 15 or 20 years ago. They have the cheapest cost of energy, solar and wind, and they have also, there are many projects in the pipeline for another 40 gigawatts. So in the near future, Brazil can secure the energy to develop this green hydrogen industry as a scale. And also in terms of regulation, they have a very good regulations in terms of trading energy. So you can You can trade in the spot market, and you can secure for the future the supply of green energy. Well, I mentioned this partnership of the Port of Pecén with the Port of Rotterdam, the location of the free trade zone area. So you have benefits, tax benefits from the Northeast, and also for this tax-free zone area if your business will be to export. So Pecén configures at some stage could be one of the big green hubs in the near future globally. So this is what I want to highlight. Brazil approved last week an hydrogen regulation. Brazil called the low carbon hydrogen regulation. So they create some conditions to develop this industry for the country. And I'm not Brazilian, but I want to congratulate the Brazilian government, the Congress, that made this decision to accelerate the process. They took the decision to put incentives for the first movers. Jose Miguel also mentioned this is something that I want to highlight. At this stage, of course, there are many uncertainties of takers, technology, finance. So Brazil made a decision in terms of giving a concrete signal that they want to be the leaders of the development of the industry. So they put incentive for more than 3.6 billion US dollars, starting on 2028 up to 2032. They also create the ReHydro registered or regulation. So the whole projects, you must apply for those incentives. They also define the north that they will prioritize the lowest emissions projects. And of course, Brazil also make the decision that they will put a lot of focus in order to create the domestic market, pay attention for the local content. They also want to bring technology to the country, so investment in R&D will be also very critical at the time to qualify the projects that will receive those incentives. So among others, in a summary, this is the big, in order to highlight the main topics of this new hydrogen law. Again, has been approved last week by the House. So I think that President Lula will has fully support of this law, and one of the good things is that has been under discussions with the industry and with the states, and now they will start working on the regulation of the law. So the idea is to be fully well prepared for the next year. Well, this is some details of how the law, of the journey of the law and the discussions and all the stakeholders that were involved. So where is our project right now? Our project is in feasibility phase. The board of the company approved last May the investment to move forward to feasibility. We have the environmental social license approved. The project went through last year to a public hearing that, and we as a company, we made a fantastic job on engaging with local communities. There are some also indigenous local communities that are close to the project and that they have been part of the process. The FEED phase expected to start in May has already started. That also we are discussing with the energy companies in order to define the condition for the PPA that nowadays is under action. We have a land lease pre-contract with the port for 40 plus 40 years. So we lock over there 140 hectares for where our plant will be located. And also we are working in order to certify our project in order to comply with the European regulations that are very strict. As you may know, this is one of the obstacles that Latin America must face and must open an honest discussion with the European regulators, because over there we have additionality also, and I don't want to expand so much about that. We are working with Europe on to certify our project, and also we are complying with IFC and the Green Hydrogen Organization in order the environment and our social conditions for our project. And this is the job that we have done on the public hearing. So thank you so much, and sorry if it was too long.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Sebastian. That concludes our seminar today on green hydrogen. I want to thank the panelists, thank our audience here in Washington, as well as those watching online. This is definitely a space to continue to watch, along with other interesting topics and themes for the energy transition. You can look at our website at thewilsoncenter.org to get more information on the Latin America Energy Transition Initiative that we launched last fall in Chile. And this fall, we will be doing some activities on the ground in Argentina and Buenos Aires. So thank you again.
Thank you.